happy Halloween. For Halloween this year, I thought I'd do a special video, special review. So, so I'm gonna review a spooky movie, and that is gonna be, let's get into it, ParaNorman. Has Norman, a middle school kid who can talk to dead people, but nobody likes him. So he's an outcast, but he's the only one who can stop the witch's curse. So, the positives on the movie are the story is interesting. Before I get into this, I was actually going to go to this in theaters when this came out back in 2012, but I was actually way too scared to go to it, which it's crazy to say now because I've seen a lot of scary movies. But I didn't watch it until I rented it off of, Redbox. So, and then, just fell in love with it. So, the positives now on ParaNorman is the story is interesting, with Norman talking to ghosts, but no one believes him. He has to stop the witch and the zombies, and it's a very unique and creepy concept. And it actually has some pretty creepy imagery with the ghosts and the zombies, and the witch. The witch in the sky. That's actually pretty creepy, pretty terrifying for a kids movie. But the movie's actually really funny. It's inappropriate comedy and somewhat dark comedy. When Prendergast dies, Norman's uncle, when he dies, honestly, that was actually pretty funny. It's dark, but it's really funny because he just collapsed to the ground, and then his ghost starts to come out of his body, but then it quickly goes back into him, and Prendergast stands up, and it's like, not yet, and then he just falls over again, with his ghost finally coming out of his body. So, that was actually pretty darkly comedic. And, also when Norman comes to his house, to retrieve the book from, the corpse, again, that was pretty darkly comedic, because he tries to grab the book, it's stuck, Prendergast's body won't let go of it. So Norman kind of picks up the body, tries to grab the book, but the body falls on top of him. And then, what's even funnier is, Prendergast's tongue falls out of his mouth right onto Norman's face. So, again, that's really darkly comedic, and I think that's just hilarious. And when Prendergast also arrives in the bathroom as a ghost, when Prendergast arrives in the bathroom to see Norman as a ghost, he says, promise me you're gonna stop the curse for one more year. And then he says, swear! And Norman says, you mean the F word? And he says, no, I mean promise. That's actually really funny. And then also something that's actually not adult-oriented, the windshield gag, when the zombie is on the van. The zombie is on the van, and Neil's brother, driving, has to try and get rid of it. He puts on the windshield, and it just kind of wipes the zombie's face. So that was actually pretty funny. So I think throughout the movie, it actually stays pretty funny until the third act. So I really like it. It's pretty funny. And going away from comedy, I think it actually has some good commentary for the movie. It's actually kind of a smartly written movie. the commentary of judging people and just assuming at the first glance of people. That's actually pretty cool. People think Norman is a freak just because they don't know him. The zombies were thought to be the villains or one of the villains. But it turns out they take the Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island approach and make them the victims. And then even the witch, they portray her as an ugly, pointed nose stereotype, but it turns out she's not even really a villain in the movie. She's actually, you think she's like this old woman hag thing, but she's actually just a little girl. And she could talk to dead people just like Norman, and people thought it was witchcraft, so they killed her because they were afraid of her. So it just ties into mob mentality, because that's what the judges, when they killed Aggie, did. And then, like, in town, since they don't know the zombies, they just assume that the zombies are bad, and then they're like, they just burn and murder stuff. So I thought it was actually a pretty smartly written movie. And it also even has, like, the history repeating itself type of commentary, which I thought was pretty smart. And again, like I already said, it actually has a really good twist that Agatha was actually a little girl. It reinforces the whole theme of the movie of, like, assuming. Like, the audience, assumed that the witch was this old hag of a woman, but turns out she was just a little girl. Just people, the judges back then, assumed she was bad, or they were scared for her, and they didn't understand, so they decided to kill her. So I thought it was actually a really good story, and there's not really good commentary, and there's not really even a bad, there's not really an actually bad villain in the movie, because Aggie actually gets redeemed. Of, like, Norman talks to her, which is actually a more interesting third act than just, like, a chase or a fight sequence. Norman talks to her, trying to calm her down and trying to give her peace. So that was actually really interesting, and that was really interesting for a third act. So I really liked that. That's it for positives. On to the negatives. A small nitpick, honestly, the Leica logo in the zombie movie, that didn't really make sense, because it's in the style of the movie that Norman was watching, so it's like, is that studio that made Norman, or made ParaNorman, a real company in universe? I felt like that was a little paradoxical. So this studio made that fake zombie film, but they also made a movie about Norman and his life and made ParaNorman. Again, that's kind of a paradox, so that didn't really make any sense. Again, that's a small nitpick. And then the only other negative is, again, a super small nitpick, is they could have had a good joke here of, like, so Alvin, they need to get in the library, but it's locked. And they say, who's good at picking locks? And Alvin says, oh yeah, picking locks is my thing. When I've always wished he said, the joke would have went like, well, who's good at picking locks? And because he's picking his nose in the scene, I wish he said, like, oh yeah, picking things is my thing. That would have been pretty funny. It's like they almost do that, but they don't. But in the end, ParaNorman is awesome. ParaNorman is such an awesome movie. Thanks for watching.